Hello there, Tanya Gustafson here, your nutritionist and fitness coach. Welcome to another episode of Fit Nutrition Podcast. Today, I am super excited because we have a guest in the house with us today, one of our Fit Lifers, longtime member in the 8 Weeks Is All It Takes group. I am super excited to welcome here Kerry Engel because she has an amazing story that I'd love her to share because I know it's going to inspire and bless and just be a good word for a lot of you out there who are struggling with overwhelm and inflammation. And just if you're ever being stuck, you need to listen to this story. So welcome today, Kerry. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
I'm super excited you're here to share your story. So tell everybody a little bit about where you were before you came to Fit Nutrition and what prompted you to get started.
Wow. Where I was not a very good place. I was dealing with a lot of health issues. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with perimenopause, so early menopause symptoms. I had mast cell going on, like with histamine issues, and we had just come off of 3 years of mold poisoning, and so I started working with a naturopath to try and get all that better. But I was feeling overwhelmed, and I knew I needed to get my diet better and focus on that more because I knew that was a lot of the issues that were coming forth was due to diet and nutrition. But I just, being a mom, and I mean, I was feeling overwhelmed, and plus with my allergies and stuff, being celiac and being allergic to eggs and all these other things, it was so overwhelming to try and find just try and find recipes, try and find somewhere to go. I needed something. And then I kept seeing your stuff pop up on Facebook, and I thought, I need help. And so that's what kind of led me to you. Is I see all your videos of you just, rocking it with your energy and, just your lifestyle. And I'm like, I felt like a sack of potatoes with my energy. And so I just, I needed some guidance, and that's what led me to you.
And I think that's
To
where
start.
I just wanted to step back just a few minutes ago, and you said, you're a mom and you're busy and you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I think overwhelm is huge in our society today, right?
Yeah.
There's everyone with so many things, all those layers you talked about, and then certain, the other things like the mold, who could have thought,
Yeah.
different things that are in our environment that we have no idea of that are affecting us. And, and then, health issues and allergies and then your child has to start school and and all of those kinds of things, and they pile up until all of a sudden we're just like, and the stress gets so much that we just need something to break it down into those small tiny bite-sized pieces. So because we talked about that, right, how to eat an elephant. And then we kind of worked on that sort of premise, right, with this approach. So and so then with all of that, how did you find, because I know that it's been a while, like we've been working together for, you joined almost a year ago, right? 10 months ago.
Yeah.
So what did you notice at first? And then we'll go from there. What did you notice when you first started living with PFCs?
At first, it was a struggle. Like I had a hard time, like there was so many great resources that you had. And so trying to navigate that, like, because I was just in complete overwhelm. So it was nice to have like the lists and what I could eat, what I couldn't eat. So it was kind of finding that balance of, trying to cook for my husband and my son and trying to work my meals around that too. So, and for me, it was a struggle because I hadn't been eating, like in my day, I'd wake up, have a coffee, and, full full caffeine coffee, and then I wouldn't eat until probably noon, 1 o'clock
And you
in
have
the
just so people
afternoon.
get a perspective, like you have like a farm at your house, right? So you have a lot of work to do at your house.
Yes, yeah, we're a bit like we don't live on a farm, but we have half an acre, and I have set it up with like a food garden. I've set it up like, and I do all the landscaping. I do like I work very physically, and I also have a horse that I go work at the barn, and so I'm very active throughout the day too. So when I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning, I'm go go go, like it's busy.
Yeah.
Um,
And so you were
yeah,
waking up and
having
caffeinating
to,
to get the energy to go, but you
yeah,
weren't actually fueling. It's trying to like, it's
no.
sort of like driving your car on fumes, when it's puttering
Mhm.
at the end and you're like, I'm hoping to make it to the gas station. And so
Yeah.
you kind of push through until lunchtime. And then how would the rest of your day go? How would you feel?
Yeah, so then I'd have lunch, but then I'd have that afternoon where I'd just be like I was suffering from really bad brain fog. I was the fatigue, and like it would really hit me in the afternoon. Um and then like I'd push myself through, and then I'd get dinner made, and then by the end of the day you just crash, and you're just kind of surviving, you're not thriving. And that's where I found myself every day. I'm thinking, what, like, I'm not eating that much. Why am I gaining all this weight? And, it was so frustrating because here's my husband, I look at he's eating all day and he's eating junk food and everything else. And generally I was, not bad with the eating at the, yeah.
And I
But
think people have to understand that the whole, so he was eating more frequently. So probably that's why
mhm,
his body was more forgiving when he would eat those sweets. Because he
exactly,
was fueling
exactly.
properly. So he was more or less keeping himself pretty balanced. So when he would have something, it was a blip in his radar. Whereas you were feeling, or probably feeling like, oh, I can't eat any of that ever because it's just going to go
Mhm.
straight to my stomach,
Yeah,
my hips, whatever. But
exactly.
because you weren't balanced, so healthy and balanced are two entirely different things,
Completely different,
right?
completely different.
So how did
Yeah.
it change
Yeah.
now that when you started, like now you're eating breakfast, right? Tell us, so what are you eating in the morning now? What are you doing?
Yeah. So now I start my day with coffee, but I've changed to decaf, and because that I've found has set my histamines off. And so then I add the Fit 20 protein powder to it with a bit of monk fruit sweetener. And that's my morning coffee now, and I love it. It because it doesn't get sorry here. It yeah, it just starts my day, and I know that I'm having a more balanced start to my day with the proteins, fats, and carbs in there. And yeah, then from there I'll go and I'll have like I'll actually, because of my allergies, I'd love to have eggs, but I can't.
Right.
So then I'll usually eat like some sort of meat or something, some sort of protein, um, and a fat. Usually, like I'll have some veggies with, some meat, either leftover from last night, and I have to admit the cheese has been hard for me, so I do have a bit of cheese for that fat component. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And does
So
that
it's
set
it's
off your allergies or anything like that, the cheese, or are you okay with small bits?
No, cheese I'm okay with small
Okay.
bits. At first, when I first started the with you, I cut out all of that, and I found a really good, it's coconut oat milk cheese
Hmm.
that I started with. So that kind of filled in the gap while I kind of reset and allowed my body to heal a bit before I added back in some cheese and stuff.
Right. And let's just
Uh,
stop here because that's a really good point.
yeah,
Um, because that's where we're not really taking anything to flush or detox your body, but we're removing things that are filling
yeah,
the toxin bucket.
yeah,
Right. And as you found
yeah.
out when you were overwhelmed and things were going crazy, the toxic bucket, I like to people have a visual, right? If you have a bucket like
Hmm.
this, anytime
Hmm.
it's full of water or anything else, you're okay until it gets right to the very top. You put that one extra drop in and things start to spill over. And
Yes,
that's
yeah.
the same as in our body with the inflammation and the toxins and whatever's going on in there. We're okay as
Hmm.
long as the bucket stays under the fill line. And as soon as it
Hmm.
gets above that and starts to spill over is when we get all of those issues with the weight gain or the inability to lose weight, and
Yeah.
blood sugar, cholesterol, and blood pressure, and could be metabolic disease,
Yeah.
autoimmune diseases, all of the whole thing, the whole gamut. Like there's a whole bunch of things that can happen because of that. And it's just
Oh
where
yeah.
the body is going to, where it's going to manifest first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so as you did that, as you pulled out those inflammatory foods, the known inflammatories, right? Or gluten, soy,
Mhm.
dairy, alcohol, coffee, those kinds of
Yeah.
things, and a few other foods, it allowed your bucket to empty,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so now I love that you can put the cheese back in and your bucket's okay.
Yeah, and my bucket's okay with that. It's funny because I've really I really go with how I feel, and like it's funny, cheese is okay, but actual dairy I'm not, like I don't do.
Yeah.
I stick to like the mozzarella's and the white cheeses and that kind of thing. I don't do a lot of the orange cheeses and the heavy cheeses. They're
Yeah.
mostly like a fresh, like a ricotta or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I find for me that works. For other people, it might be different, but
You made a good point, because all dairy is not the same. And
no, it's
you're,
not.
you're
It's
right.
not.
Some people, they think it's just, oh, if I can have this, I can have that, it's going to be the same. It's not. And so
No.
I love it that you pointed that out and that you realize that, because it's important when people are trying to determine what works for them, is don't assume that all dairy, just because you've had one, okay, you can throw it all back in if it worked for you. You still
Yeah.
need to one at a time it and make sure that it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was finding that like the carb portion, I use like more vegetable based and stuff now for the carbs, like sweet potatoes. And I've actually cut out white potatoes because I don't really enjoy them all that much. I'll have them once in a while, but my go-to is a sweet potato or
Nice.
carrots or that kind of thing. Because I even find, because I'm celiac and all the gluten-free stuff, there's great options, but a lot of it is filled again with fillers and sugar, and just because it's gluten free it doesn't mean that it's good for you.
Right.
So, and I was reacting to oats. um you know I think of it like the horses. We feed oats to the horses to pack on the weight, and it gives them heat, and it creates heat in their bodies and everything, and inflammation, right? And
Yeah.
that's what it was doing to me. So even gluten-free oats, I've cut out. I noticed that the carbohydrates that were bad for my body started to give me heartburn. So I've noticed that in the evenings, and I had heartburn all the time in the evenings. But when I cut that out, it was like, oh, I didn't have that anymore. So I know now that, oh, if I have heartburn, it's like, okay, what did I have in my day? Okay, this is where it was. I need to stay away from that, or
Right.
um, have that as a once in a while type food, right? So
Right.
which I've been doing, but
And so how
yeah,
does that
so
work for you? So have you determined, um, so do you pay attention to, okay, I've been really on point with my food, and so I know that my bucket is really low and I have space, or is it kind of just, has it been random? Like, are you consciously figuring that out as you're going?
yeah, like you know, I kind of I've been kind of like in the day, I'll say, oh, if I had this thing in the morning kind of thing, like if I had a higher carb in like the morning or at lunchtime, then I'll just have meat and vegetables for dinner. And
Right.
I'm
So like a
okay with
dense
that.
carb, like give us an example.
Like say if I have like half a muffin,
Okay.
or like I'm just craving something, like, or a half a sandwich,
Okay.
right? I have actually cut out sandwiches quite a bit. I thought, oh, it's only one piece of toast a day, right? But even that adds up and triggers that inflammation for me. And so I just, yeah, so it's very rare when I have that. And then, so I know that if I have that higher carb earlier in the day, that's maybe not so good for me, then I'll kind of, yeah, I'll make sure to consciously, um, have taco salad for dinner, which is just for me is just lettuce with some meat and vegetables, right?
Yep.
And just keep it more simplified that way. Um, I have to admit, I I have an issue with chocolate. So that was one of the things that was really hard to cut out. So you know what? I didn't beat myself up over it. I just cut down on it. So
Yeah,
now I have like maybe the keto chocolates that aren't high in sugar, that are the dark chocolate with coconut and
right.
stuff like that, where it feels like it's more of a treat, but then I just have one piece instead of eating the whole chocolate bar. And
Exactly.
actually, I found like my sugar cravings went from like overwhelming to just yeah, they're pretty well non-existent now for sugar
So now basically
cravings.
like having a piece of chocolate is because you feel like having chocolate, not because you're over, like you're not,
Yes.
you're, you know, pulling towards like you're craving, you have to have it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the difference. It's like I'm choosing to have that chocolate instead
Yes.
of just letting my hormones and letting my cravings take over, and because that was a big issue too, was my hormones were completely out of whack with the perimenopause. It was so frustrating, because I started on hormone replacement therapy. I was at really high doses, but since I've changed my eating through the Fit Nutrition program, I've actually been able to reduce my thyroid pills, my hormone pills, and even the histamine pills that I was on at night, because I've been on quite a bit of medication because I was really struggling.
Yeah.
Um, and even my fibromyalgia, I think, like I was at like a 6 out of 10. I was in pain before I started the program all the time. My feet hurt to the point where I didn't want to walk. At the end of the day, the nerve pain in my feet were just terrible. And, um, and now I'm finding, I have the odd off day. If sometimes I'm not supposed to have egg, but I'll get a craving once in a while and I'll be like, oh, I miss it so bad. And then that's when I pay for it. So, and I know that day I have to then, okay, for the next week, I got to be pretty good because it takes a little bit to get out of your system.
It does.
So
And that's what I
it
think
does.
people, yeah, you have to
Yeah.
realize that. And for every person, it's different. And as you continue to keep your inflammation low, so for you, you know, it's
Hmm.
histamines and things like that, and those
Hmm.
starchy carbs and the processed things, right, that we have
Hmm.
minimally, excuse me. And if we can keep those out for longer stretches, then we have more time for the gut to repair.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
the gut repairs more, it can handle things that we put in it, and that
Yeah.
that bucket doesn't get full so fast. So then you have
Yes.
a larger window of, oh, I might like to have an egg once in a while, and down the road
Mhm.
it will likely heal up so that when you do have one, you won't how do we say, pay for it for as long of a time. It's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter.
Mhm.
And then but it just takes time to heal that gut. But I love that you've been able to reduce medications. That's huge, because there's always
Yes.
a side effect from every medication.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anytime we can reduce some of that going in, it's less our liver has to filter through as well, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that lowers our internal inflammation. That's the environmental thing that we put in that we can lower, right? And then the pain factor is huge, because so just touch on that. So how did that impact your life now that you are basically, like, I think, well, before you broke your ankle, so just full disclosure, Kerry broke her ankle and
Yeah.
after all of this, after she was feeling much better without the pain, and then broke her ankle, so she's working back. But prior to that, I mean, your fibromyalgia pain went down to like almost zero, you wrote in the group that one time. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
that's,
It was quite amazing. Like, and even my broken ankle. So my journey, like when I first started, like it took me a long time for the weight to start moving. It was frustrating. It's like my body just wouldn't let go. And I know there's an emotional component to it as well. So I've also been working on that component with the emotional eating and the trauma that's stored in the body. And I've been really working through like equine therapy and counseling and everything else to let that piece go as well, because we store our emotions in our body too.
yeah, we
So
do. And that all causes
bringing,
inflammation too, right? And the inflamed body,
yes,
it will not release the weight. It's hanging on to
no,
it for like a safety
no,
net, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if your liver, I mean, your liver has to process all of that fat releasing too. And there's we store our toxins in those fat cells. So how, how can your liver process what on a daily basis what is processing with the chemicals and stuff, not to mention that the release of fat and stuff with those
Yeah.
toxins too. So it took me a long time over the winter last year to and then into the spring, I was just feeling better in the spring. Like last year, I could only walk maybe a kilometer with before my feet hurt so bad, I had to turn back. And I thought I wouldn't make it back. And because I take my horse walking all the time and we go hiking and stuff, but I was struggling with the pain and just the fatigue, and part of that was the mold issue as well. But it was like a combined of it was like, yeah, the combination was terrible. But in this last spring, after the winter, I was just before I broke my ankle, I was walking over 6 kilometers with him. And I was just going to start running again because I thought I used to be able to run, 10 kilometers a few times a week. And I felt so good. And I thought, oh man, I'm getting back there. And then, yeah, I had a riding accident and broke my ankle. But that was actually a really good catalyst. I say everything happens for a reason because during that time that I was on the couch with my broken ankle, my body wasn't as stressed physically. So I was actually resting my body, and I actually lost a little bit more weight because of the stress factor.
Yeah.
I was taking that extra stress away. My husband, he had to step up and look after me, and you know, th- both the boys had to pitch in to help around the house. And so that was a really key moment and of just realizing that it not only physical stress, mental stress, it all culminates in the body. And when we don't give ourselves time to actually rest, um, our bodies just go into that fight flight mode, and it won't let go of anything. Like it just, oh yeah, it just hangs on to it. So that was a really, you know, I still throughout.
That's a really good word for people out there right now because especially we're in this world, a lot of moms, especially moms
Mhm,
and parents,
mhm.
and we go back to the overwhelm and we're like, okay, but I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do
Yeah,
this. And we're just
that
pushed and
happily.
pushed and pushed so much that we don't take that downtime. And
Hmm.
self-care is not selfish. Like I need a
No.
t-shirt that says that because I say that all the time. And if we don't, we can't pour from an empty cup. So if we're not taking care of this body, like this is our vehicle that drives us through life. And if we only get one, we don't get trade-ins or lease agreements or deal, all of that, right? We just get one. And
Mhm.
so if we're not allowing it to rest and repair, because that's the only time it repairs is when we rest and sleep.
Yeah,
So if those
yeah,
things aren't happening, then it's a really long haul. And
yeah.
you're right, your body won't lose weight if you're not well rested, if you're not healing, if you're not restoring. It won't do
Hmm.
that because everything that we do, our body triages. And
Yes.
releasing this weight is not on the top of your body's list so that Kerry won't die,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's going with what keeps her alive, da
yeah.
da 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 da, right down. So
And
at
it's
this point,
let's
we're
hang
down
on to
here.
that weight so that if there's because she's in survival mode, so we need to hang on to that weight, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, and it just, that's the point. And that time, that downtime on the couch with the broken leg, it really gave me time to deal with some emotions. I couldn't keep busy
To avoid
um
it.
yeah, to avoid it. I had to, like, I was more accountable, and I couldn't avoid it anymore. And that's when it really came up that like the emotions started moving in my body, and I started really recognizing them and feeling it, and I had to let go of that stuff. And that was kind of the catalyst. So everything does happen for a reason.
Well, everything does happen for a reason. And there's a reason that you were here today watching the first half of this interview with Kerry Engel. And so I know that you're going to want to tune in next time and see part 2 of her transformation, of her journey from Overwhelm, where she was with Overwhelm, and how she's come through that, and how she's still on her journey, committed to not just getting good, but getting better. So stay tuned, tune in next time, watch for episode 2 coming up shortly. And thank you for joining in today on Fit Nutrition Podcast. Have an awesome day.